Hello, everybody. Welcome to your very favorite Bronze Age comic book podcast, Flea Market Fantasy. I am your co-host, Mike-DELL, and as always, I'm joined by...
Michael-DELL of the LCS Hockey Radio Show.
That's right, and this week, it is your pick, so why don't you tell us what we're reviewing this week?
Well, Mike-DELL, I was looking through a list of 1970s comics, just trying to pick something new that we've never done before, and I found something called The Human Fly from 1977. And I got to tell you, this is fascinating stuff. The Human Fly. It is amazing.
Yeah, it sure is, yeah.
Now, I don't know, are you familiar with, because you're a Canadian boy, Mike-DELL, and The Human Fly is like Canada's answer to Evel Knievel. Are you aware of The Human Fly?
I have seen the comic, but I have never read it, and I had no idea it was connected to Canada in any way.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's based on a real person.
Really?
Like, on the cover, in fact, if you look at the cover of this issue, Human Fly number 1 from 1977, it says right at the top there, the wildest superhero ever because he's real.
Right.
And I didn't know what that meant. You know, I didn't know if fictionally, if they just meant like he's real in the sense he has no powers or anything. No, he's a real person. This is crazy stuff.
Fascinating. Okay.
Are you ready to hear the true story of the Human Fly?
Yes, let's lay it on me.
All right, the Human Fly's name is Rick Rojatt, R-O-J-A-T-T, and he was 29 years old, and he emerged from Montreal, Quebec. He claimed to be a former Hollywood stuntman who had survived a car crash that killed his wife and daughter. He needed 38 operations and 4 years to recover. When it was all said and done, his skeleton was 60% steel because of all the surgeries.
Okay.
So, he wanted to be a stuntman and a daredevil to inspire others to overcome their disabilities. And that's why he became the Human Fly. And he gave his profits to children's hospitals and others in need. And he wore the costume in the comic book is based on his real life costume. Like this guy existed before the comic book. All right.
Okay.
And he actually wore the same like the outfit. Describe the outfit for the people, Mike-DELL, at home who can't see the Human Fly.
It is it's red, mainly red, and there's eye holes with like white kind of like I don't know what they are, wings kind of around them.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a lucha libre wrestling mask.
Yeah, okay.
And then like he has like the white cross across the face and white lines down the arms. Right.
And then it goes down to like his like a symbol on his stomach that's a rocket, right? Yeah, rocket.
Yeah, it's just weird.
and then he has got white gloves and kind of white boots, and that's pretty much it.
And he wears he's got the I guess there's only white on the front of his shins and feet. So they're not
that's what I mean. They're not really boots.
Technically
they're just
boots.
a design, right?
He also carries a scepter with him, a special baton, and he wears a cape. Although on the cover he's not wearing the cape. Well, in one of the pictures he is, but he's wearing he wears a white cape with like 3 symbols on it and stuff, like star symbols. All right, so that's the Human Fly, and he's a legit person. And he was basically, like I said, Canada's answer to Evel Knievel. Because in the 1970s, Mike-DELL, daredevils were all the rage because of this Evel Knievel character. You know?
That's right, yeah.
He was hugely popular. So the Human Fly kind of like took on him as a rival. And he says, I want to be the best daredevil ever, better than Evel Knievel. And he gained fame by standing on the top of a DC-8 airliner flying at 300 miles per hour over the Mojave Desert. And he did this in 1976.
The Human Fly did?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
And you can find videos of it. It's amazing. I went down a Human Fly rabbit hole on YouTube recently, and it's unbelievable.
Okay.
Like, he's appearing on Canadian talk shows and stuff, being interviewed in his outfit and everything. It's amazing. All right, so anyway, that stunt, he'd stood on a DC-8 airliner, and it had the Human Fly stenciled on the side of the plane, and he was strapped to a support. What's the word I'm looking for?
Like a harness?
Like a stick.
Okay, sure. There you go. Yeah, it's a twig. Okay.
Like a metal contraption was. So he was strapped to that. He wasn't just standing freely. He was strapped to a metal thing. But this plane was going. They say 300 miles per hour. Maybe some doubt between 250 and 300. But still, it's impressive. And he actually, in the Mojave Desert one, he actually did it one day and then he did it again the next day. But those were the second and third times he attempted it. The first time he attempted it, and this is all in 1976, he tried to do it near Dallas. And the one problem, when they're flying up to like 250 miles an hour, they encountered a rainstorm.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And this gets depicted a bit in the comic book, too. They throw back to this. But when you're flying at 250 miles per hour through a rainstorm, the raindrops hurt. They hurt a lot. Uh-huh. So when they landed, he was basically knocked silly. He was knocked loopy by all the rain. And he also suffered very severe wind burn over the lower portions of his body. So he had to go to the hospital. Like he was like lifeless when they took him off the plane. They loaded him into an ambulance, and they had to take him to a hospital. And he was in the hospital for, reports vary, at least 2 weeks. Some say up to a month, like 2 weeks in the hospital and 2 weeks at home recovering. But yeah, so it did not go well. But then the ones in the Mojave Desert did go well because there was no rain. So that
Jesus, okay.
That was successful.
Done in by water. Okay.
Yeah. So after this, he became kind of a celebrity for the guy who was riding on top of the DC-8 airliner. And Marvel, they reached a licensing agreement with Marvel, so that's why they made this comic book about him, because of the success of that stunt. But he had other stunts in mind. He had claimed that he wanted to ride a rocket over the English Channel. Oh. That sounds entirely safe.
Okay, yeah,
he was just going to cling to the side of a rocket while it was shot across the English Channel. Okay. And then he said his final stunt was going to be, he wanted to jump off the top of Toronto's CN Tower.
Jesus Christ.
Into 20 feet of water.
Oh.
That would have worked. I'm sure that would have gone smoothly. No problems there.
Jeez. People commit suicide by diving into water, like, from that height. Jeez.
It reminds me of, like, the old cartoons. Didn't, like, Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny have a rivalry? They were doing stunts and they wanted to, like, jump off of something into a cup of water.
Or it was, like, I think it was Yosemite Sam. He dove into, like, a bucket of water. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Wow.
That sounded like what the Human Fly wanted to do. But sadly, he never got a chance to do those stunts because in October of 1977, at Montreal's Olympic Stadium, he attempted to surpass Evel Knievel's record for jumping school buses.
Okay.
Like, Knievel had the record at like 13 school buses. So the Human Fly said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to jump 36. And they said,
Jesus.
Well, no. They said, no, Human Fly, you can't jump 36. That's insane. So he goes, all right, I'll do 27.
What? How about 14? Try for 14 first.
Yeah, start for 14. So he, this was at the opening act for like a disco concert in Montreal featuring Gloria Gaynor and and some other disco stars of the 70s.
Nice.
And the tickets, there were still plenty of good seats available. Let's put it that way. when the Human Fly took to the ramp on his rocket-powered motorcycle. And I would say motorcycle. Yeah, so apparently this motorcycle, if it was all loaded up with they had rocket boosters underneath it, 2 of them strapped there, and it could get up to 300 miles per hour, in theory. So he took off on this ramp, and the good news is he did sail way past 13 school buses. So, but
not 27, right?
Yeah, technically, he broke Evel Knievel's record. As long as you didn't count, you had to land it, because somewhere around school bus 20, the bike kind of flipped up on him, and he ended up landing on his back, and the bike fell on top of him, and he went skidding into the landing ramp.
Oh my God.
And I have no idea how he survived. This should have killed anyone. But maybe his body really was made of 60% steel because he survived. Jeez. He was waving to the fans, they took him off on a stretcher to the ambulance, and he was waving to the fans, and they took him to the hospital. He ended up having only a broken ankle and just other minor for me, easy for me to say, but like contusions and bruises and stuff. But only one broken bone, which is because if you watch, you can find a video of this on YouTube. The crash is pretty spectacular. You think, no doubt he's dead, but no, he survived. So he went to the hospital, and then that was the last anyone ever heard of the human fly. He just disappeared.
Okay. Right.
Yes, he just vanished. And we'll get into more of this later. But that was it. That's all you heard of the human fly. And so that was in 1977. Marvel had already started the comic book. Without the human fly around to keep things going, they just, the comic book petered out by issue 19.
Okay.
Stopped. So it ran for 2 years.
Do you agree this is screaming for a movie starring Will Ferrell or somebody?
The movie's been in the works for years. And they actually thought, like, even recently, as recent as like 2016, 2017, people were talking about making this movie. So it's been in the works for many years, but it's never actually happened yet. Another filmmaker was going to make a documentary on the human fly, and there's like a 7-minute video short on YouTube you can find out about it. But we'll talk more about the human fly after we discuss the comic book, because I don't want to ruin things for the kids out there. We'll talk to him, because his true story of the human fly is a little different than it's portrayed.
There's no Spider-Man in his life, then, you're saying?
No. But there's some shady stuff going on with the human fly.
Ooh, okay, interesting, okay.
So we'll get to that after we talk about the book.
Sure.
But, the human fly. I can't believe you, as a good, proud Canadian, never heard of the human fly, Mike-El.
Never, no. I never knew there was a connection. I knew there was a Marvel comic, but that was it.
So, wow. All right, there's a couple other, before we get into the book, a couple other names we need to mention from characters here, just so everyone knows what we're talking about. A fella named Ted Locke plays the human fly's engineer. And he's a former Vietnam vet who was injured, and he has hooks for hands.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know if you know of this guy either, Mike-El. His name was J.J. Armes, A-R-M-E-S. And he was a private...
He's a real guy.
This is a real guy. He was a famous detective in the 1970s. I think he got fame because he rescued Marlon Brando's kid, I believe.
Really?
But they had
no idea.
They had action figures made of him and everything, because he did have hook hands. And so the thing is, like, this guy, this Ted Locke, is probably based on him because of his popularity. Like, let's make him with hook hands. I don't know. So another character we'll be discussing is Blaze Kendall, and she's the African-American female pilot for the human fly. Right. Then we have Arnie Berman, and he's like his human fly's nebbish business manager. And then finally we have Harmony White, spelled W-H-Y-T-E, and she's a news reporter for a local TV station there, who's intent on exposing who the human fly really is, because no one knows who he really is, his secret identity. There's something else I wanted to say about the human fly and all this stuff. Now I forget. All right, I'm sure it'll come to me later.
I'm sure it'll come to you, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wanted to say all the comic book stories, basically the premise was that he would travel the country doing these stunts to raise money for kids. And in the course of the stunts, there would always be some criminal trying to steal the money.
Okay.
That was pretty much the formula for every issue. Up until then, I believe issue 11. I should mention all 19 issues of the series were written by Bill Mantlo. And the artist for this issue is Lee Elias,
who I've never heard of.
Yeah, we'll talk about him later.
Sure.
But so that was the premise for basically all the issues until issue 11, where they depicted his infamous Montreal crash on the motorcycle bike. So then the remaining issues were kind of like the human fly trying to regain his confidence, which is pretty good. I think that's pretty good,
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
Yeah. So I haven't read any more human flies, though. But I might. We'll see. I don't know. I'm very busy, but we'll see. All right, so that sets the stage for the human fly issue 1, which we'll be discussing today. And again, this is from 1977.
Right.
Woo! So was this the year you were born, Mike-El? 77?
No, I was born in 76.
76. I was 75. So look at that. We're right there. Right in our heyday, Mike-El, as toddlers. As wee babies. The human fly. Oh, we should mention it. Well, no, I'll get into it later. Because when we get into the backstory. There's something else I wanted to talk about, but we'll get into it later after that we talk about the issue.
The only thing I want to point out is I noticed in the indicia on the inside, it says copyright Human Fly Spectaculars Limited.
Yes.
So yeah, that's pretty interesting. You don't usually see that in a Marvel comic, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's basically they approached Marvel. I guess Marvel's trying to cash in on the Evel Knievel craze, but they couldn't get Evel Knievel. So the people behind the Human Fly, who we'll discuss later, approached Marvel with the idea, and they basically, it was like, it almost seemed like they were paying Marvel to do the book. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, but here we are. Stan Lee presents the Human Fly, and the title of this issue is Deathwalk. But
are we going to talk about the cover or no?
Yeah, we have to talk about the cover because I really love this cover.
Yeah.
Was this Al Milgrom drew this? I believe.
No, I don't know.
I'll look it up. Describe the cover.
So the Human Fly is kind of running towards the viewer. He's holding his scepter, right? No cape, like we said. There's like this explosion behind him, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 scenes of action going on around him, which is kind of cool. And one scene, he's dangling upside down from a helicopter, and another one, he's balancing on like a what is that called? Like a just a balance. What is that called? Like just a balancing wire, like attached like a
like a tightrope wire. Or,
a tightrope, right? A tightrope, yeah. Attached to like a rock next to a waterfall, and then he's of course flying on top of a jet on one of them. Yep. But
Which
this is my favorite one. Yeah, wrestling with a shark. I love that. Smacking the shark with a scepter. That's so cool.
Yeah, right across the nose. He's hammering the shark, and it says there's a blurb on the right that says first fantastic issue, and then at the bottom there's a blurb that says from the shadow of the grave. He rose to become the greatest death defier of them all. This is amazing. Awesome. And the cover was, in fact, drawn by Al Milgrom.
Really? Wow, it's pretty good for Al Milgrom.
Oh, it's a great cover. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. It's solid, definitely, yeah.
And then under 30 cents, September 1977. And then underneath the price, we get the little character box of the Human Fly standing there, hands on hips, with his cape over his left shoulder. This is great stuff.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun.
Yes, I love it. All right, so now we get to the issue. Again, it's called Deathwalk. And Mike-El, look at this splash page. The Human Fly hanging upside down from a metal pole extended from beneath a helicopter. And he's suspended over a jetliner.
Yes.
And it's also raining and thunder and lightning and stuff.
That's right. That's right. That killer rain we talked about, right?
Yep.
So basically he's suspended over this plane and we're getting his thoughts, and it's cool because we're cutting away to all the supporting characters you mentioned, and we're getting their thoughts as well. So, Human Fly is kind of explaining what's going on. Magnet clamps and gloves will adhere me to my target if I'm not blown away before I can reach it, right? And then we cut away to Ted Locke kind of describing what he's doing.
He's the engineer. The guy with the hook hands, and he designed this pole that extends beneath our jet helicopter, because it is a jet helicopter, not just a normal helicopter. It's souped up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I can keep up with an airliner.
Okay.
But he designed this metal pole that extends beneath that the Human Fly is hanging from, and he has to secure it though. Like he's trying with all his might to keep it steady, so the Human Fly doesn't fall.
Interesting. Okay, and then we cut over, and it's funny because I didn't know these people were real. So,
these people aren't real, really.
But they're based on real people, right?
Well, the Human Fly is real, but Ted Locke, he's not that. He's kind of, they just stole the hook hands from that famous private eye.
See, I thought they were all based on his actual crew. From the way that you were talking. Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, just to make that clear, his actual crew was a bunch of con men and snake oil salesmen.
Nice. I'm looking forward to hearing that story.
Yes.
So then we cut over to Blaze Kendall.
The pilot?
She's the pilot, and she's kind of just talking herself through this job, and which we'll get to later.
Yeah, just to be clear, she's the pilot of the jet helicopter.
Okay, right.
Not the plane.
Right. And then we cut down below, and Harmony White is, reporting from the ground. Harmony White for West TV, blah, blah, blah. And then it's kind of funny the way they do this story, because while she's talking, she actually flashes back. And then she's like, 1 hour ago, a holiday mood pervaded Houston International Airport as a weekend crowd prepared for the premiere performance of The Human Fly. And then we flash back to her interviewing. This is his manager, right?
Yeah.
This redhead guy? Yeah. So he's standing there in his full costume and kind of just explaining what's going on. But then while they're doing this interview in this flashback, suddenly the press plane from New York, it's been hijacked. Yes. So then this is now we kind of have flashback within flashback, because now this guy is explaining to the Human Fly about how yep. on the plane this gang has been taken over, this gang led by a guy called the Mercenary.
Let's talk about the Mercenary, because he wears like a green jumpsuit, brown gloves, and he has a gun, and he's got a red helmet with a blue circle and a white skull on it and some goggles. Not that intimidating, I gotta tell you.
No, not really, not really. And then his goons are all wearing, like, one's got a brown jacket, one's got a blue jacket, but they both have like these blue hoods or these black hoods, right?
Yeah.
Well, not hoods, but full face.
Like ski masks kind of things, yeah.
And so he's the Mercenary. And so he's basically threatening everyone. And then when we cut to the shot of the crowd.
Mike-El, he's threatening everyone in that crowd, the press junket. A lot of press people on there. Do you recognize anyone in that panel?
Well, I recognize Peter Parker.
That's right, Mike-El.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I was just about to say that. Yeah, which is cool, because I guess it shows that no matter who's drawing Peter Parker, you can always tell it's him, right?
Yeah, that's the one thing I took out too. Like, this is Elias. He's never drawn Spider-Man. Well, I guess he did do maybe one issue of Spider-Man in his career. But look at that. Everyone, you see Peter Parker, it's Peter Parker.
Right.
That's pretty impressive, I think.
You gotta wonder, if they have like a model, like they must have a model sheet somewhere that everyone copies from to make sure they get it right? So that's cool.
Yep.
So anyway, so they give their demands, the ransom demands. We want $5 million cash and safe conduct to Mexico. And so that's basically it. So then we cut over to the Human Fly, and he's like, the Mercenary may be bluffing, but we can't take that chance. So the Human Fly is going to take it upon himself to rescue the plane, right?
Yes, and we should mention the jetliner, they say that they're just going to fly in circles around Houston until they run out of gas. And they'll crash. Right. So that explains why this jetliner isn't just in Colorado by now, Like it's
right, yeah.
They're circling. So, all right.
That's hilarious. I think they'll pay up, kid, don't you? Yeah, so it's a good plan. So anyway, so then we cut back to the president, and now Human Fly has landed, or he's still connected to the jet helicopter, but he's just about touching the top of the plane, right? But not quite. It's
hard to tell. Again, he has magnets in his gloves that will help him stick to the plane, like
right, palm magnets, right?
Yep.
And and so they're bickering back and forth. What's his name? Ken? Is that his name? Ken Locke?
Yes, I believe so.
Blaze, baby, you've got to match speed with that jet. And she's like, I'm trying, Ted. But air pressure's dropping. We're heading into a storm, right? Yeah. And so now there's lightning and there's rain, and then of course now we got to cut to another flashback. So now,
let's just make clear that Blaze says, "Forget that, Ted. You know what rain feels like at 300 miles per hour." So this gets into like that first failed stunt where he got battered by the rain. They're calling back to it here, and right. It's tremendous. I love it.
I love it. Yep. So then so then it's funny because then she's like, I've been giving it all I've got, but I can't do it. Yes, you can, lady, for the fly. And she's like,
for the fly.
And it's like,
that should be our new catchphrase, Mike-El. Whenever we don't want to do something, we have to say, for the fly. Do it for the fly.
Do it for the fly. Right. So then it's like his words hit Blaze Kendall like a shot, and the years flash back to a time when, and then we flash back to her co-piloting a plane, right? And then away we get some 70s sexism in there. The pilot's like, first time out as a co-pilot, huh? Well, I don't think much of lady pilots. And then, of course, fate intervenes, and he has a heart attack right on the spot.
And he doesn't look that old either. He looks like he's in his 30s.
Like 30, yeah, exactly. And then it's funny because then the narration's like, it was too late for pills. His body lurched forward, ramming the stick down hard. And then, of course, now the plane is in a nosedive, right?
Yep.
So now it's up to, what's her name? Blaze. It's up to Blaze Kendall to rescue this plane. And, of course, she manages to somewhat safely land it on the ground, but she does destroy both the wings, right? Or
yeah,
at least one of them.
I mean, she did what she could to say it wasn't a smooth landing. It was a crash landing, but she saved everybody. No one died.
Right.
But she got real messed up, though. So, yeah, we cut to her in the hospital.
She's covered in bandages, and her arms are in casts, right? So her body mended, but her confidence was shattered. Months passed as she withdrew further and further into herself until one lonely night. And then we see a mysterious stranger contact her, right? Come into the room and basically...
Yeah, I was going to say, he's in the room with her. He doesn't just contact her. He walks
walks it right into her hospital room. And he's like, you've given up before. You even got started giving up on yourself. But if I could make it, then so can you. You're the best, Blaze, and I need you, right? So then we cut back to the present, and, she's, all right, people, it's going to take some pretty fancy flying, but Blaze Kendall's going to get through, you hear? For the fly, right? Like we said earlier, she's going to do it for the fly. Yeah. So then we cut over to, what's his name?
Ken Locke.
Ken Locke. And now he's going to have his flashback, which is, of course, to Vietnam, right? So he's he's
struggling trying to steady this pole in the helicopter, and he actually is like sticking out of the bottom of the helicopter now, trying to secure it.
Right. He's hanging by his hooks.
Yep.
And so he flashes back to when he was in Vietnam as a military engineer. And, so he gets caught in an explosion here.
Well, he was going to blow up a bridge to cut off the enemy supply line, but right when he's about to detonate it, a woman and her child are about to get on the bridge. So he goes running out to tell them to get away. And while they get away safely, the explosion catches him, and he gets shredded by the explosion.
A little bit like the Hulk, right? Like someone is in the blast zone. He's got to go save them. So then, now we cut to the hospital, and he's lost both of his hands, right? So his limbs are just covered in bandages, and then once again, a mysterious stranger visits him in the hospital, right? And then is like, who's there? Someone asking you not to give up, Ted. Someone like you. And then he's all down on himself because he lost his hands. But then this mysterious stranger shows these scars on his arms. And he's like, look at the scars, Ted. Almost 60% of my bone structure had to be replaced with steel. So I think I know who this mysterious stranger is now.
That's right. Yeah.
So I need you, Ted. Will you join me? So then we cut back to the present, and he's still hanging on to this metal pole thing with his hook hands. And then, so the fly is, now he's made his way to the jet. He's walking on top of it. And he's like, if I can make it to the forward hatch, the mercenary will find he's got an unexpected passenger aboard, the human fly, right?
Yeah, that's a great shot of him striding towards the camera with his scepter in hand, and then the helicopter in the background, and the lightning storm going on behind him. And it's awesome.
Awesome, yep. And then, of course, inside the jet, it sounded like something moving on the outside hull. You kidding, boss? Even at these lower speeds, what could it be? But then Peter Parker is also there, and his spider sense goes off. He's like, as impossible as it seems, he's not kidding. There is someone up there. So they know that something's up. So they do the first thing that comes to mind, which is, of course, shoot the top of the plane, and then and then vrack. And then the human fly recoils right from the blast. Blast, throwing me off balance. Mag clamps tearing free. Yeah, good Lord. I'm being swept from the jet. He's got to narrate so we know what's going on.
Yes. Meanwhile, if you, like, in the time it took him to say all that, he'd be like,
Yeah, he'd be in Houston, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So then we cut back to the ground, and they're kind of watching what's going on. And now he's basically in a free fall, right? But... He's like, falling fast, got to switch power flow from my magnet clamps to the auxiliary jets Ted built into my boots and gloves. So he basically flies back to the jet and grabs onto the exhaust, right? Or whatever this is.
Oh, the wing. It's a wing.
Yeah, the wing. Okay. Yeah. Yep. And then he's like, got to grab wing flap and hold on for dear life. And then the narrator, life. There was a time when that word was synonymous with death. And then so basically we're learning his origin now, right? Like the night his car was run off the road in North Carolina, hours or days later, and we see him in the hospital covered like a mummy
Well, Mike-El,
Sorry.
there's a little bit underneath the panel of the car crashing.
Oh, yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Like
they don't put it in yellow. They just write it on the... I don't know. It's almost like it was added afterward. They forgot to put it in, and they're like, oh, let's put that in there.
Killing his wife, his children instantly. Right.
Yeah, that's a big detail, yeah.
It's kind of important, yeah. And then we cut to... so then now we see that he's covered in bandages, right? Head to toe. And then the doctor's like, you are in a hospital in critical condition. We may be able to save your life, but you will be a cripple the rest of your days. And then he screamed to himself since his broken lips could no longer form words. I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
I don't know why I'm laughing at this. This is a true story. I shouldn't be laughing at this tragedy. Yeah, I got to do it. Okay, I got to stop laughing for the fly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fly.
So then he's like, I will move again. If the mind is whole, then the body can be made to respond. So he, of course, crawls out of bed and then hoists himself up by the, what is this thing called? The drip thing.
Yeah, the IV drip pole.
Yeah, the IV drip. Yeah, he holds himself up, which I think that would fall over, but whatever. So then he holds himself up, and then they show him teaching himself kind of like to walk, and then, from a crawl to a walk, and then he can lift up the chair, and then he can work out with it, and then he can do like squats, and then he's push-ups and whatever these are, jumps and handstands. Of course, he's still got his face covered in bandages, but yeah. And so basically, and then he gets inspiration from these army vets, right? Vets, workers must hurt more than me, all given up without hope. There's got to be some way of giving them courage to show them that if I could triumph over my disability, so can they over theirs. And so with an idea, the human fly was born, and we cut to this reveal of him in his full costume, right? So now we know the origin of the human fly. I'm pumped. Anyway. So now we cut to the outside of this jet, and he's basically, so he manages to blow the door off. How does he do this? Oh, radio detonator.
Yeah, he's got all kind of little gadgets and stuff, too.
Right. Yeah, he's got a miniature explosive charge from his belt.
Because his buddy Ted Locke, again, was an explosive expert in Vietnam, so he knows how to rig all these things. Yeah.
Right. So then he makes his way into the inside of the jet and starts... Huh?
Here's my question for you, Mike-El. Now, again, I'm not a scientist. I don't know all this kind of stuff. But if you were to blow off the door of an airliner while it's flying, wouldn't everything just get sucked right out that door?
Absolutely, everything would get pushed out, and he should not be able to just jump in like that. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, but everyone else in the airliner, they don't even. There's no change to them. They're all just standing normal. No one's because every time I see a movie or something where there's a plane where the door opens, or everyone has to grab and hold on to everything, But,
right.
But here in this, nope, doesn't matter.
No, everyone's unfazed. You're right.
Yep.
So he starts cleaning house. We see the sound effects: crack, patow, batok. He's punching and hitting everybody, and then brack. I forgot about that one. And then we cut over to a certain wall crawler. Peter Parker is now changing into Spider-Man. He's taking advantage of the fact that, human flies kind of distracting everybody, so he has time to change into Spidey. And then one panel later, he joins him in the fight, right? Walk. So he's knocking people out left and right. And then the Mercenary is trying to get away, but then the human fly leaps into action and jumps, he catches him by the feet before he can get away. And then, he actually still does end up falling, and now he's falling with him.
Well, we should say the Mercenary has a jetpack.
Yes, I was just about to say, yes, he has a jetpack, and he's shooting back at him. So this is, he's not out of danger yet. So then,
the human fly's hanging onto his feet. The Mercenary, they're flying outside the plane. The Mercenary has a gun, and he's missing the human fly.
Yeah, I know. He's 1 inch away from him, but he's somehow missing. You're right.
Yes, literally an inch away from the barrel of the gun to the human fly, and he's missing him. But anyway.
So Spidey goes out after him, and of course he does one of those tricks where he makes his spider web into like a mini parachute, and he maneuvers himself to try and help them. But human fly is still kind of wrestling with this guy who's continues to shoot at him and continues to miss. But and then he uses his jetpack to kind of blow the human fly back. But Spidey is maneuvering his descent so that
Well, actually, what happens, Mike-El, is just one punch. Human Fly cracks him and knocks him unconscious.
Ah, I see.
Since the guy's knocked out, he loses control and the jet hits Human Fly, knocks him off.
Right. Yeah. So the mercenary is unconscious, but he's still flying away. Spidey maneuvers himself to help him. He shoots out his web, saves him, and then brings him down safely to Mother Earth. But then he has to quickly leave because he has to get back in the plane so that no one questions where Peter Parker is.
How is that going to happen?
I have no idea. That's awesome.
Like, I got to get back in that plane before anyone knows. How are you going to do that, Spider-Man?
It's funny because, like the panel before, they show they're hundreds of feet in the air. And then after he drops him off, Spidey, we see him swinging away. What is he attached to? There's nothing around.
What is he shooting at?
I love it.
But the other detail here, Mike-El, is look, the mercenary is now laying peacefully on the ground.
Yeah, you're right.
What?
That's awesome. Right.
He was knocked unconscious and his jetpack was still flying him away. Now he's just right there on the ground taking a nap.
That makes no sense. Yeah, he should either be like 1,000 feet in the air or like smashed into like nothing, right? Into like a pizza. Yeah. We get the wrap up. Everyone crowds around and the Fly did it. He saved that jet. For our entire city, Fly, I can only say thank you. Please give the reward money to charity, sir. The airline has covered our expenses. We ask for nothing more. Ted, Blaze, Arnie, we've done a good day's work. Let's go home. Let's go get some rest. But then we cut over to, what's the reporter's name? Something White?
Yeah.
Whatever her name is. She's like, he's too good. I'm going to find out who he is, expose him, if it's the last thing I do.
Harmony awesome. White. Harmony
White.
Yeah,
that's right. So there we go. There's our little wrap up there. Awesome ending.
So then next issue.
Yeah.
Careful, Harmony. It just may be, because she says if it's the last thing I do. Careful, Harmony. It just may be. Next issue. Race to disaster.
I love it. Wow.
So what'd you think, Mike-El? Your first experience as a Human Fly?
I gotta say, on a scale of fun, this is an 11.
I loved it too. It was great.
Yeah, like the ridiculousness, all the things that we were questioning and laughing at is part of what makes it so enjoyable, right? Like,
yes.
Holy moly, this is awesome. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's great.
And also, I gotta say, for 1977, it's focusing on like the disabled,
right,
and trying to do charity work for the kids. And you have a guy with the hook hands,
right?
You have a black female airline pilot, which
right
in 1977. I mean, how many of them exist today?
Right.
How many black women are piloting jet airliners commercially? I don't know. It can't be that many. And here, this is 1977. So it's pretty impressive that they're doing all this kind of stuff back then. I don't know.
Well, to me, it felt like a setup for a TV show. Like, this is a TV show, So, I mean, I'm assuming all of this was probably dictated by, what is the company called? Human Fly Spectaculars Limited, right? They're probably like, you got to have this in there.
No.
You don't think so? Oh, no? Okay.
This is Bill Mantlo and Marvel doing this stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we'll get into those guys in a minute.
Okay. So, yeah, this was a lot more fun than I thought it would be, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, the costume, I like his costume. It's distinctive.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad.
And again, that costume was created by the Human Fly and those people. Like, Elias just drew it exactly as it was in real life. Except he made the Human Fly more muscular.
Of course, yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. But I also, we mentioned Bill Mantlo. We've talked about Mantlo on the show many times, so we don't have to go through all his career. But he did write all 19 issues of this. And I got to say, I like the way it was structured. It was interesting the way it was structured, how we got these flashbacks of each person. And,
yes.
And we see how each person, their origin stories and why we should care about them. Like, Ken Locke sacrificed for that woman and her child, so then he ended up losing his hands. The Human Fly lost his family in that crash. So this is how you make characters likable. There are a few tricks you can do. One of them is to show them sacrificing for someone else, which is what we get with Ken Locke, and also Blaze Kendall. She saved all those people on the plane to her own detriment. And then another way is to have them going through a tremendous tragedy. And we get that with the Human Fly. He loses his family. So that's all really good stuff. And I don't know. I just I liked it. I really liked it.
I totally agree. And the thing is like I just read a Spider-Man comic this week. It was Spectacular Spider-Man number 80 by Bill Mantlo, and I swear it's one of the best Spider-Man comics I've ever read. Like, I think he's definitely capable of writing some filler, cash a paycheck type comics, but he is definitely a good writer for sure.
Yeah, this dialogue and stuff, it's way better than your Roy Thomas fare and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes, you're right.
I mean, obviously there were some holes in the plot, like with the whole airplane situation and the guy getting knocked out and just landing on the ground with no explanation, and Spider-Man getting back on that
but
airplane.
That's part of the fun though, I think.
Yeah, it's goofy fun, not like stupid, like, because the tone of this is fun and just, more for kids, it works. Like if this is a real serious story and then you had those kind of holes, it would be much more glaring.
Right.
But here it just adds to the fun. So,
yes.
There's also a description here. After the main story ends, there's the making of a hero. And who is the Human Fly? A tentative explanation by Bill Mantlo. And Mantlo,
I didn't read that. Okay.
Yeah, well, he goes over the history of the Human Fly, and again, the car crash and all the surgeries. Apparently, he had 38 surgeries, like I said, over 4 years. And so it gets into the backstory of the Human Fly some more. But let's talk about Lee Elias real quick before I finish the story of the Human Fly.
Sure.
Lee Elias was born in 1920 in Manchester, England. Sadly, he passed away in 1998 at the age of 77. He moved to the U.S. as a boy and studied art at the Art Students League of New York. In 1943, he broke into comics with Fiction House, a publisher of pulp magazines and comics that existed from the 1920s through the 1950s. Did you ever hear of Fiction House, Mike-EL?
Oh, yeah. I've heard of it, yeah.
See, I never had. He left Fiction House in 1946, and then he worked for Timely Comics and National, which, of course, were the predecessors of Marvel and DC, respectively. And at National, he drew The Flash, Black Canary, and Tommy Tomorrow.
Nice.
Do you have any concept of... I have no idea who Tommy Tomorrow is. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I don't think I've read it, but it's basically just a series set in the future. It's like a 1950s science fiction comic. That's all I know about it.
He earned acclaim for his work on Black Cat for Harvey Comics. And this book was about a stunt woman turned crime fighter. And he drew 45 issues from 1946 to 1963. Had you ever heard of the Black Cat, Mike-EL?
I believe so, yes. In my travels, I've come across the Black Cat. Not the same character as the one in Spider-Man. This is a different Black Cat, right?
This is Harvey Comics Black Cat.
Yep.
And most of his comics work was for DC, including runs on Action Comics, Detective Comics, House of Mystery, House of Secrets, and Adam Strange. He drew He drew issues 40 to 46 and annual number 1 for Power Man in 1975-76 for Marvel. And then he drew 10 of the Human Fly's 19 issues between 77 and 79. And when he retired from comics, he taught art at the School of Visual Arts and at the Kubert School.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Lee Elias.
Definitely a solid artist. Definitely.
Yeah, like this stuff here, it's like classic Silver Age, early Bronze Age art, I would say. It's like,
definitely. Yep.
It's what you want out of a comic book. Like this art's perfect for a comic book.
Yeah, like the thing I noticed is like every panel is like a complete image. Like you see a lot of characters in the background, you see a lot of action going on, so there's a lot of information in every panel, and that's cool.
Every once in a while things will get wonky with the anatomy and stuff, but it's still really good comic book art. Just solid stuff. Right. Love it.
Yep.
So there you go, Lee Elias. All right, Mike-EL, so let's talk more about the Human Fly, all right?
Yes, I gotta hear this.
So the Human Fly actually all started. It was a concept conceived by Joe Ramacieri, who in 1974 was a 23-year-old sausage maker for his family business in Montreal.
Okay.
He and his brother Dominic, who was 5 years older, were basically running the business. But Joe didn't want to just make a sausage his whole life. He wanted to make it big in entertainment or something. He wanted to be rich. He wanted to be a star. But so he noticed all this Evel Knievel stuff going on, and he said, "Hey, why don't we get into the stunt business? But I don't want to do the stunts. No one else wants to. Dominic, you don't want to do the stunts. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a guy who can do the stunts. So they created Human Fly Spectaculars Limited, as you mentioned. That's their company.
Okay.
And they needed a stuntman, so they hired a guy named Rick Rogette to play the masked Human Fly character. Rogette was a new guy in town who talked big and claimed to be a former Hollywood stuntman.
Okay.
He legit claimed that his body was made of steel due to recovering from a gorilla attack at the Florida Zoo.
Okay. Okay.
Apparently, a female gorilla went nuts and beat the whole hell out of him while he was working at the Florida Zoo. But in truth, Mike-El, Rogette was never a stuntman. He never worked at a zoo. He never got beat up by a gorilla. But part of what he said was true because I guess he did live in Florida at the time, because when he was on TV as the Human Fly, even though he was wearing a mask, a lady recognized him as her husband who abandoned her and her kids.
Okay.
He skipped Florida out on his family and went up to Montreal. And he was just talking big. And I guess he owed the Ramesseries, he owed one of their cousins money. So,
okay.
So he became their stuntman.
This
no
is
stuntman
awesome.
training whatsoever for this guy. None.
Oh my god, this is awesome.
In the Ramesseries, they actually used multiple people in the Human Fly costume to make appearances and stuff, but it seems like Rogette was the guy who did the stunts.
Okay.
And there's videos of them. Someone asked them, like, hey, and this was back at the day, too, in the 70s, not later. They said, hey, would it be bad for business if, like, the Human Fly dies in one of these stunts? And Joe Mercenary was like, nah, I don't think so. We'll be all right. Because they said one of the reasons they wanted to have a guy in a costume is because they could just take out, if something goes wrong, if the guy gets too full of himself or too big of a star, they could just replace him with someone else and no one would know,
Jeez, yeah.
His exact quote was, we could go dump him in a lake somewhere and get someone new.
Oh, wow. Okay. Jesus.
So, but Rogette started liking the celebrity, so he started, no one was supposed to know his name was Rick Rogette, but he leaked it in some interviews that his name was Rick Rogette, and he started to play up into the celebrity aspect of it. He started to enjoy himself a bit too much,
Mm-hmm.
So, rumors were swirling that the Ramesseries were tied to the mob, and that they had $1 million life insurance on Rick Rogette. And this was before the big Montreal jump on the motorcycle.
Okay.
Now, Mike-El, when you're doing one of those motorcycle jumps like that, I guess what you want to do is practice, make sure the equipment works and everything. And
sure.
Make sure the landing ramps are up to spec. None of that happened.
Okay.
The guy that got to make the motorcycle is a legit dude. I forget his name. But he's like a legit guy in this business and designing stunts and everything. And he created this motorcycle with the jet propulsion on it and everything, the rocket propulsion. And so when he wanted to test it, and they said, no, don't worry about testing it. He's like,
don't bother with that.
So then when Rick Rogette, when they showed up to do the jump in Montreal, he said he wanted to show Rogette how to. Rogette's like, hey, tell me how to do this. He'd never rode in a motorcycle before.
Oh my god!
And he said when Rogette showed up to learn, he was super stoned. Like he said, he was either really drunk or really stoned. He wasn't there. So the guy he said, all right, here's what you do: you just sit, you flip this red switch, and you throttle all the way. That's all the lesson he got.
Oh my god!
So then when they showed up to do the stunt, the guy who designed the bike also designed the ramps and stuff and told them the specs they needed. He got there and the ramps were totally wrong.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, you can't do this. Like, the guy's going to die if you do this jump. Mm-hmm. And the Ramessery brothers were like, don't worry about it. So the ramps are completely wrong. The guy's never ridden a motorcycle before in his life. He has no idea what he's doing. The motorcycle's never even been tested, but they tried the jump anyway.
Wow.
So that's why... So that's why, he crashed, obviously. And then that's why people think that the mob had the life insurance policy on him. They wanted him to die.
Jesus.
But he survived. And there was even talk that when he was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, people in the ambulance were beating him up, trying to kill him. But he survived. And the fact that he survived that crash, it almost makes it seem like he legit had 60% of his body made of steel.
Yes.
But
Jesus.
no, he did not. Again, he was never beaten up by a gorilla. Never had any of that stuff.
I wish
All
it
right,
were
so he goes to the hospital and he just disappears. And people are like, well, why did he disappear? Why did he go into hiding? Well, one theory is because the mob wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. So he just bailed. And the other theory is he was just skipping out on his family still in Florida. He didn't want them to find him because it had just come out that his wife found out who he was. So he just, went underground again. So it was either to hide from the mob or to hide from his family.
Well, what's funny is I'm actually on his Wikipedia page, and you know how usually you have like the year the person was born or the year they died?
Nothing.
For him, it's just a line. It's nothing. They don't know anything about him.
Now, years later, I mentioned, the guy was making a documentary about him, and he thinks he tracked him down.
Okay.
That he's now, at the time, he was living in Ontario, or Toronto, Ontario, to be specific. And he was working as I can't remember, like just an insurance salesman or something, like just an office job.
Sure.
But the guy denied that he was the human fly. But the documentary guy is pretty well convinced that it was him, but that he just doesn't want to admit that it was him for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's still hiding out. Another interesting note about all this is when the Mercenary brothers were making their deals with Marvel, they had a young woman working for him at the time, and her name was Cyndi Lauper.
Come on.
Yes, the real Cyndi Lauper, the Cyndi Lauper. And
really?
Part of her gig was running back and forth, like she was like the like, I want to say messenger or whatever, but she was like their assistant. So she carried like scripts back and forth between Marvel and Human Fly, Spectaculars Limited. She was like the go-between between Marvel and them, carrying checks and scripts back and forth. So that's interesting. And then I don't know if you remember this, but back in the early days of Cyndi Lauper, she had a boyfriend named David Wolf. Did you ever hear of that guy?
I don't think so, no.
If you go back and watch the early stuff she was doing in WWE, he was part of it. He was like, you would see him hanging around. But anyway, he tried to take up the name The Human Fly. He started working with these Mercenary brothers. He was going to be a recording artist and a music star, dressed as the Human Fly. He started wearing the Human Fly costume and doing concerts, but it never took off. So that was the last we have of the Human Fly. Sadly, Joe Mercenary passed away in 2017 from cancer. So, and I don't know about Dominic. I don't know if he's still around.
So we never heard their side of the story then, eh?
Well, he did talk to this documentarian who was putting the movie together, and there's like a 7-minute, like I said, a short trailer for it on YouTube where you get to see Joe in his later years talking about it.
Okay.
But yeah, so basically the Human Fly, him being this heroic guy, and it's all nonsense. And the backstory about his family dying in the car crash, in the comic book it says his wife and children died in that car crash. In real life, when the Human Fly was giving interviews, he said he just had one daughter who was 4 years old. That's all lies. None of it's true.
Wow. Okay.
Bill Mantlo came up with that story about the car crash.
Gotcha.
Like Bill Mantlo and Marvel came up with that to make him more empathetic and a more likable character. And then the Human Fly, the real persons, adopted a variation of that story in interviews and everything. But yeah, that was a Marvel creation.
Okay. Okay.
So there you go, the Human Fly. But I cannot recommend it enough. Go to YouTube, search Human Fly, and just enjoy. There's so much good stuff.
I have to say, as far as backstory, this is the most interesting backstory of our entire fantasy series. Wow.
It's fascinating. And again, like there's a 21-minute video they did of documenting his jetliner riding through the Mojave Desert. And the news reporter, the guy doing the reporting at the scene, a young Brent Musburger.
Who's that?
Oh, you're Canadian, I forgot.
Yeah.
Brent Musburger is a very famous sportscaster here in the United States, known for football in the 80s and then college basketball later on. But he's very famous. Very famous.
It's also because he's a sports guy. That's probably why I don't know him.
Yeah. So. But it's crazy to see Brent Musburger there.
Wow, I am interested in this. I got to find out more.
Yes, it is so great. I love it. So the Human Fly. Yeah, when I picked this, I thought it was just a goofy Marvel story that never. But I had no idea this backstory and everything. It is fascinating. They're definitely someone has to make a movie of this. They have to get this done.
100%. Yep. I'm in.
It's awesome. There you go. I'm just sad we missed out on seeing him jump from the top of the CN Tower into a bucket of water.
That would have been great. Yeah. Hilarious. Yeah, see, it's funny because we got to rate it, and I'm thinking again on a scale of fun, it's an 11. I mean, as a comic, I'd give it a 7 for fun.
Yeah,
for what it is, it's a 7 for sure.
I give it a 7 as well. The art's solid, the writing's solid. It's hokey and goofy. I like the way they put up the backstories of the characters, and I would read more Human Fly.
Yeah. Yep. I actually, I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to have to slot it into my list.
Especially when I want to read the issue where the motorcycle crash happens. I think issue 11 that's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Then when you find out the backstory of the Human Fly, this is amazing. This is amazing.
Well, let me tell you, next week is not going to be nearly as fun. We're going to go in the complete opposite direction. So I hope you're ready for this. This is like pushing the boundaries of the Bronze Age, okay?
Okay.
You ready for this?
Sure.
Neil Gaiman's Sandman, number 6.
Man, you love this Neil Gaiman character.
That's right. So yeah, this is like hardcore, serious proto-Vertigo stuff. So nothing like the Human Fly, but yeah. So we're gonna do this, and then I got some more tricks up my sleeve after that. But I want to keep it all a surprise. So that's what we're doing next week.
What year is this?
This is 1989, summer of '89. So
wow, yeah, you're getting real close there, Mike-El. Real close.
Pushing the boundaries. So.
And you said Sandman issue 6.
Yep, I'll send you the link. No problem.
Okay. And cool. Mike-El, another teaser for weeks ahead. My next pick, because you're clearly not a true Canadian, you never heard of the Human Fly. I will be doing another Canadian-based pick when I'm up next. So.
I'm gonna guess. Should I guess or leave it a surprise for the listeners?
Leave it a surprise.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess that wraps up this episode. So who knows? We might have guests coming up. We might not. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary, so maybe we'll do something special for that.
That's hard to believe. That's hard.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. But anyway, until next Tuesday, disperse.
And do it for the fly.